this story is about my dad, George Ochoa, and this particular story is not something that he really likes to talk about because it involves his parents. And this story takes place in 1998 when he was 17 years old. In this particular day, he was on his way to the airport with both of his parents, his dad and his mom, to go back to Mexico to do some paperwork of some kind. On their way to the airport, a drunk driver ran a red light and crashed head on to the car. My grandpa died instantly, and my grandma was in a coma for a month until she eventually passed away as well. Luckily, nothing happened to my dad. He does have a few scars. He has a scar underneath his mouth that have his bottom two tooth prints at the bottom. He has a few scars on his chest, but it's nothing major. He was safe, but his parents weren't. But because of this accident, he had to take care of both of his younger sisters, a 16-year-old and a 10-year-old. But because he was 17, he did not have the proper age to take custody of his sisters. He was going to turn 18 in a couple months, but of course the court wouldn't allow that, so he had to fight for his sister's custody. He had to fight for his family, for the remainder of his family to stay together. While this was going on, he was not allowed to leave the US, and they couldn't take his parents' body to Mexico like he would like. For my grandpa, he had to be buried here, and my grandma, since she died a month later, they were able to send her body to Mexico where she was properly buried and where she wanted to get buried. My dad, he didn't cry from what my mom was telling me. He didn't like to cry. Not even in any of the funerals, he wasn't crying. He was always serious. And throughout this whole experience, he didn't ask for help. He didn't go to people. He wasn't open about anything, which is completely fine, and I understand if that were to happen to me, I'd probably not do the same thing. But because of that, he was facing lots of problems. He had a few financial issues because he had to quit school. He had to go get a full-time job in order to support his sisters and show to those social workers that he can support his family. So he had financial issues, but he wouldn't tell anyone he had financial issues because he was now taking the role of the man of the house. And like many people, being the man of the house means, in society's view, that you're supposed to be doing things on your own, that you're supposed to be the one doing it, not getting help from anyone. And my dad was raised thinking this way, so he wouldn't be asking for help. He wouldn't be open. And then he had the issue of, was my family going to stay together? Him and his sisters were the only ones left after the car accident. And he just wanted them to stay together. Second was this house that I'm in right now. It was my grandparents' house. But now, was he gonna be able to afford this house? Where were they gonna live? They couldn't go back to Mexico because the government, well, the city or government, I don't know exactly how to say it, but they wouldn't let my aunts leave the country because they were under their care now, since they were in the system. And it was just very difficult for my father. A few months later, after the whole car crash, he was finally able to speak to my grandpa's brother, so his uncle, and he cried to him. He realized that he can't be keeping things to himself. And so my great uncle offered him like money and told him that he will be there to support him because that was his brother's son. So he really wanted to make sure that his kids were going to be taken care of too. And it was a lot to handle for my dad. But because of the people that were around him, the people that cared for him and my aunts really loved them, they were able to support them and care for them emotionally, physically, and financially. Those things from everything that he's told me, I learned that you really have to be open to people, because when you're not open to people, you're going to stay closed, isolated, and you might not get the help that you need. And while he got financial help, he eventually was able to help my great uncle when he was in the hospital. And so he helped my great uncle with his bills when he was older. And now he was helping his middle sister. When she went off to college, he helped pay her college. And then when she bought her own house, he went to go help her with those things. And his smaller sister, when she decided she wanted to move to Mexico rather than stay here, he was able to help her and support her with her ideas and her decisions. So now, after all of this and all the hardship that he's gone through, he was able to help others because he knows how hard things can be when you're alone and when you're going through things. So the most important thing to take away from this story is to not be afraid to ask for help when you need it, and to turn away to those ideas of what society makes you think is important and what your role is supposed to be. Because your role can be anything. You don't have to follow society's rules. And it's okay for you to cry and be open. So just make sure that you're doing things that are going to be helpful for you, and that you ask for help when you need help.